lot of a lot of the design side is going to be space planning, what rooms are, what volumes are. When you talk to a mechanical engineer in Revit, they're going to care about what's our spaces from Revit, what's our room data. So all that can be exported, one for analysis, two for doing our colored plans, doing stacking diagrams, pulling area calculations, so Bowman calculations when we're trying to determine leasable versus non-leasable. All that comes into play and can be done in Revit. Now Revit will handle areas and schedules, and pretty much Revit is a database. And I have a little graphic here for you, so I'll go into courses and kind of explain before we get into schedules, rooms, and areas, kind of really get you acclimated to this concept of it. What is it? Class 1, so Revit as a database. So internally, Revit will allow you to connect to a database, and that's because Revit at its core is an actual database, right? So it's just like Microsoft Access, just like Microsoft Excel. I'm not going to go through this as like the tutorial for doing it, but really it's accessing these properties. So if we go all the way to the end of this document here, right, I can look at it, and it's going to pump out one ID number. So when we talked about IDs, every object has an ID. That corresponds with, what, if it's a level, where is the level? All the properties are just fields of a database that get associated with a specific category, right? So, and then that object represents that piece. So really, the people think, always the thinking's been geometry is king. I am doing things based on that geometry of my design, where really at the core of Revit, information is it. Right, you make an object that is a representation of data. The difference is that I don't need that representation in geometric sense. I can have any kind of data. It's just we need to produce documents. So that's the other side of it. So really, at the core of Revit, it's really was developed more so of the information side. It was developed by parts engineers of all people, And then some genius came along and said, well, why don't I do buildings the way I design parts in such as SolidWorks or something of the latter? Right, so we'll be accessing Revit's internal database by using schedules. Schedules are another way of saying database field. So we can query out data. Just like we set up the filter, I can query data amongst that. And then rooms and tags and everything we do from here on out, at least in the course, is going to be about that idea of pulling information from something else and representing it, right? So I can start making connections. My tags will be filled by specific data connected to another object. Colors of the rooms are going to be that way. If I export, areas are going to be done that way, so on and so forth. So I got a little demo file too as well for you. That's under projects, or no, it's under, excuse me, those are my projects. Under Sweetbird.
Do you have to open it? Or?
No, you don't have to open it. I'm going to just kind of walk you through it. So, because, with the detailing, I always try and give you a glimpse of what we're going to do before we go do it. That way, there's less questions, right? I've made that mistake so many times. So I just go ahead and try and prepare something. Now, this isn't the Sweetbird file. This is just a demo file to kind of show you where we're going to go with it. Oh, Revit upgrading. So this is an actual build project. It's a house in Japan. Definitely not up to American code. But you can see from the forefront, I have a series of colors on my plan. Those are tied to names within the room. The room then houses a tag. So if I change my tag name to something as room, right? It's going to change the color of that room because the color is tied to the name, and then that tag is reading is also reading the boundary area of that. So then how do I read what the area is? Well, within the tag itself, if I select that tag, I can do a tag with area out of the box. I can do a tag with volume. So if I'm doing any mechanical, right, I need to do my heating and cooling loads. What are those going to be? I'm going to do it through a volume. Mechanical engineer is always going to be looking for this from a Revit model or a BIM model. Yeah, so the tag is housing that information. It's going to be reporting back. So this is also reporting somewhere else. So internally, this data is stored somewhere, and we can access that data through a schedule. So if I come into my project browser here, bring this up. So all the way at the bottom are my room schedule. So within that room schedule, I have all the things that I've seen before. So I just changed room, right? So this is Microsoft Access inside of Revit. This is the core foundation of Revit. It's on a SQL backend. I can connect to a database. So if I wanted to pump this information out, I can go ahead and export that as an ODBC database, which is here, right? I would need to know a little bit about database structures and all that stuff and connecting data sources. But really, it's just, it can do SQL, it can do Access. Those are the main ones. If there's something else you want to know about, just ask. We can, and most likely it can do it. Just a little bit of workaround from the SQL side. But at the forefront, you really don't ever need that. It gives the potential for a project manager to come in and never open the model, right? Connects to Microsoft Access, goes through, checks quantities, checks everything else, checks your tags, does everything through here, pumps it back into the Revit model with the changes. You see that in your drawings. All the drawings get populated with that. So really having that ability to see information and then see the drawings. So the drawings are always going to be feeding from this side of the information, right? And then within this room schedule, I can also control those tags, those model elements. And in this case, we know that room I changed from K, right? So I can then populate from the schedule. I can change colors. I'm changing the tags directly in my model. So if I go back to that top of kitchen floor, right? I've selected it in my schedule. It's already highlighting it in my model somewhere, and then changing that color back to what it should have been. Right? Now also I can change the legend, right? Legend is just a visualization of this data in order to kind of queue up which is what. The colors are view specific, so not everyone is going to pick it up. The tag is also specific to right, that particular view, so it's an annotative element. That data still exists. I can pull that data at any time in any view. However, in this particular view, I'm not showing that. For some reason, right, one's going to be showing that diagram, and this one I'm showing an actual construction or materiality or whatever it may be. And this is leading into tags and areas. I can easily then in the next one come back in and tag that room. Now if I hover over it, you'll see that even though I don't see the tag, those items still exist. So once I define it once, I don't have to define it again. It's there. I just have to give the cue to the model and say, hey, I need you to show the tag in this view again. So I can just go in and then tag that room, right? So if I wanted to see the tag in that view, that data and that connection, that Boolean toggle is still already there. It's just one shows the data, the other one is not showing the data. And then I can easily come into this same view and then queue up the colored plan for that. It's really powerful when it comes into really kind of early stage design as well as at the end of the stage design. You're saving time in calculation. You're also saving time at the forefront in calculation as well, making sure you're hitting numbers, right? I need to make sure I have so much square footage for my bathrooms, or something as simple as making sure I have enough parking spaces, right, for however my occupant load is. Making sure I have all that figured out without having to spend half a day actually sifting through all the data, making sure it all looks right, and then doing my calculations. And immediately that data is accessible the minute I start drawing anything in Revit. Okay, so let's get our feet wet a little bit with making rooms, diving into schedules, getting colored plans out, getting the things we want. Okay. So that's my demo. The demos that are available for you. You can play around with it. Go ahead and close it out.